Welcome back to the Glow Up Girl podcast. I am Kyra, and today I am joined by author, speaker, space claimer, badass woman, Eliza VanCort.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here, Kyra. Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, thank you for coming. I mean, I'm so excited to get started. You have an amazing story, and I want you to just kick off by telling those in the audience who may not be familiar with you a little bit about yourself.
Well, I am a mama and an aunt. I have 3 out of 4 of my kids, and they're not kids because they're older, are back in the house because of the pandemic. I'm an acting teacher, and I wrote a book called A Woman's Guide to Claiming Space, Stand Tall, Raise Your Voice, Be Heard. And the reason I wrote that is because for a long time, I was quite invisible because I had a really rough time. And so for me, the process of learning to be visible was so powerful, and I wanted to share it with other women.
Oh, that gave me chills. Oh my God. That's definitely like chill bumps because, and that was one of the questions when I started to read your book. I was like, why? Like, I mean, of course we all have our reasons, why, but to hear you say that and know that there are so many women who feel invisible, who feel they can't find their voice, is so awesome because look, everything I read about you before meeting you, I mean, you would never get that. Like I looked at you, I was like, this lady is bad ass. And you want her in your corner. You want to be like her, like amazing. So I am just so very like, it's so like comforting to know that you came from a space in which a lot of people reside currently.
Yeah.
And you're new in this book. Yes. So, I mean, oh my God, I want to dive into it because all the layers, all the layers. So you did give your why as to why you wrote it. Yeah. But as you think about the space in which women, why is this a tool you wanted to create for us?
Well, so do you want me to get into my whole story of my head injury? Because that's kind of where it all started.
Yes, I do. I do want you to tell that story.
Okay. So, I had a really hard childhood, which we could talk about later. And, I don't believe in comparing suffering, but I certainly didn't have the worst childhood, but it was rough. And then I thought I kind of had my act together. And in 2014, I was hit in the head with a car. There was this lady who decided it was a better idea to text and drive than just to drive. And she plowed into me. I was on my bike. I went up on the hood of her car, hit one side of my head, got thrown into the middle of an intersection, hit the other side of my head. I was unconscious. I woke up with a bilateral brain injury and a subdural hematoma. I was bleeding in my brain. And at first, it was just awful. I would go to sleep at night, and I'd have most of my day still with me. I'd wake up, half my day would be gone. So my memory was shot. I was clumsy. I'd try to make an egg. It would hit the countertop and not the bowl. I mean, it was just a mess. And then eventually I started to get better, and I thought, oh, I'm really doing better. Like besides some weird stuff, like I used to hate raw tomatoes and now I crave raw tomatoes. Like I'm pretty much myself again, And then, one of my girlfriends came over and I said, Kim Munson-Burke, my dear girlfriend, I said, Kim, I don't understand what's going on here because I feel much better, but everybody's acting so strangely. And she said, Eliza, they're not acting strangely. They're responding to you. You're acting strangely and no one knows what to do. Your communication is really off. And at that moment, I realized, oh my gosh, like not only is my communication compromised, but it's so compromised that I don't even know it's bad.
Right.
Yeah.
And
I realized I was just going to have to rebuild my communication from the ground up, brick by brick by brick. And so I started watching people and observing, and eventually I could read again, or I would listen to journal articles, and I just immersed myself in communication. And eventually one of my students came back to my house and started crying. This was months later. And I thought, oh no, I thought it was better. And I said, what is it? And she said, oh, you're you again.
Oh.
And I thought, and she said, you have that spark, and you're even stronger. And that's when I realized I'd done it. I cracked the code.
Yes.
And so I started wanting to help other women. And it wasn't just that I learned about communication. I really learned about how some women were more powerful and why. And as I started learning about that, I thought, this is something that I want to share because it's such a consistent pattern. And so I started doing these talks. And the final piece of the funny story is that women would follow me to the bathroom after my talks. And they'd be like, I have to tell you something I didn't want to say after the talk. So I almost called the talks conversations in the bathroom. Yes, there's so many women who told me their stories in the bathroom, but my publisher was like, that might not be the best.
I did like that because I thought, well, it's a safe space. If you think about, when we were in when you're working in an office, most women tend to conjugate in the bathroom, that's where they tell the stories because you don't generally feel safe in those other places where, men are sort of lurking or, looking. And so it definitely, when I read that, I was like, that is so true. Like,
yeah. I mean, you see a woman like standing at a bus stop crying. You hope you go up to her, but you're not sure. You don't know her. You see a woman crying in the bathroom and you're like, sister, what is going on? Like, are you okay? There's like, no, the barrier goes away. And
it's like, girl, let me help you out.
That's right. Exactly. It's a great equalizer. I mean, the only thing I do want to say, because I have very many people in my life who I know and love who are trans, that is not a place that is yet welcoming for that group. But besides that, it's just a wonderful, wonderful kind of oasis of safety.
Yes. So, what I do love is really sort of your central themes for the book, in which you give 5 strategies that women must understand to claim their space. So can we talk through those 5? I mean, and just give a little sneak peek and maybe just because I feel like even, when I first just sort of read through the 5 before, and what I do love, let me just backtrack here. I love that you say there's no right way to read this book. Read this book however you need to read it. And because I feel like at different stages and phases of what you're going through in a day, you may need to go back to this section of the book. Because I work in my everyday life. I work in corporate America and I work in a male-dominated business and industry. And so there are a lot of times where I'm like, when I got this book and started to read, I was like, let me just go back and see what she said there because I'm having this moment. This is happening right now.
Well, that's the thing. Is like, I was like, look, this is for real women. This isn't for some theoretical woman who's like, I think I'll have my tea and uninterrupted read for hours. Like nobody, who is that woman? Like, that's not me. I'm like, I need to figure out something now.
This is, oh my God, they're losing their mind in a meeting. Let me pull up. So I need some backup. That's right. So the first thing you talk about is claiming physical space, bowing to no one. And
that's right.
So that is communicating powerfully with your voice and your body. And I love that because I think that people think communicating is always just with your mouth, your voice, but it's really like your body. And so if you can just talk about that.
Well, my background is as an acting teacher. I mean, I have a weird background. I was a political science major in college, and I've always been really active in the political sphere. But my other background is I did a 2-year Stanford Meisner technique program in New York City, and I've taught acting for over 20 years in my acting studio. And I have seen the power of what a little tiny adjustment to your body does in the way that you feel and the way that you're received. And so much of the time we are taught to be small. I mean, you see, people sitting there and, using these really small, cutesy behaviors. And to me, you're just really showing your neck. Like one of the biggest ones is like when you point your toes together. Like little girls point their toes together. And who's the least threatening thing on the face of the planet? A little girl. We're all rewarded by doing this like, oh, I'm so non-threatening. Why? Why do we feel we need to be non-threatening? Why is being small non-threatening? And why do we want that? Why don't? And so for me, let's claim our space with our bodies and our voices. And we have the right to take up some space. I mean, my favorite example is I was on an airplane once. And this guy, he puts both his hands on the armrest.
Yes.
Both? You get to have one. We both get one, And so I just put my arm there and he starts pushing against me. And I'm like, he's pushing back on him. And eventually he looks at me like, what are you doing? And I look at him like, what are you doing?
Exactly. Yeah.
And eventually he's backed off. And that's but we are 50% of the population. And with our voice and our body and our words, we should be able to take up 50% of the space.
Mm-hmm. Love that. Because that is so true. That is so true. Because, and I thought this was great because I was like, I have an example for tomorrow. I was in a meeting and there were 4 men on the phone and me, and they were all just literally talking over themselves, just over each other, just, and one guy said, and Kyra, what do you think about blah, 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 blah. So, I come off mute and, I was like, excuse me. So would you like for me to answer the question? Or if you have it figured out, then I can hang up and just continue my lunch. And I'm happy. I was like, I'm happy to leave if you don't need me. Oh, no. Of course not. No, go ahead. I'm so sorry. I always do that. I know you do, but I'm asking you not to do it. So it's just, it's one of those things.
Oh, I love that. That's awesome. You want me to go to lunch? Because y'all have this covered.
Yeah, apparently you got it. So there was no point in asking me to show up if you're going to just talk over each other. But it was just one of those things where I was like, oh my God, how many other women in the company are experiencing this on the phone when they're meeting with all the men, and it's just the one woman on the phone. And I was just so it's
every
so
one of them.
Yeah.
to different extents.
So I'm you know what, HR, we are getting the book. Okay. I'm helping women to claim their space at work and helping everybody out here.
Yes.
So
I wanted to give that to many a man and be like, you should just read this because you may see yourself in some of the things we're trying to combat.
You just might. But so now the second one I love, claiming space collaboratively, amplifying each other. Mm-hmm. When I read that, and I was like, yes. And everything, obviously with my business and this podcast, that is really the whole point for me, is to amplify other women, to celebrate other women. And, I think that, forging those relationships, like you said, is the right thing to do. But it's still interesting that a lot of us don't do that. What do you have to say to that?
Well, I always say that I call it fighting for your spot on the bottom, right? We're just sitting there, and it's so great for people in power when we do that, right? Because they're like, you guys can just fight. We're going to link arms and hire each other and promote each other. Yes. Have fun down there. And we're like, rah, So, it doesn't always happen, but it's something that's so important is, we need to collectively claim space together and raise each other up.
Yes.
That's how we're going to all rise higher,
Yes. It's so important. Especially because I think last year it just sort of just became a thing that just stuck with me about seeing all the things about women's empowerment, seeing all the things. I'm like, we've got the notebooks, we've got the framed art, we've got everything, girls support women, supporting women, all these things. But it's are you really doing that? And are you really celebrating another woman when you have the opportunity? That's and right. I always call it crabs in a barrel. Where it's like, if someone, it's like there's enough space for all of us to win. And there's multiple seats. We make the table. Like, we're making the table. And so it is so, so when reading that, I was just like, oh my God, I love this, because I think we can't say it enough, and actually showing the examples of how you actually do it. It's not just enough to say that I do these things. Oh yeah, I support women. It is, what are you doing with your little piece of the world in which you live in, that you can actually say, oh, well, I do have a friend that does this. Let me go here, or, just let me support you in a way that matters, because it's the actions. So
that's right. That's right. And also the other part about that is making sure you don't let people in that you don't want to. And that's the anti-mentor piece. There are people who come into your circle and poison it and drag you down, and you want your cheerleaders in there. You don't want your anti-mentors in there. And that can be very painful to kind of weed those people out, but it is transformative.
I did write that note. I wrote, learn to spot prototypes of people who make you feel small. Yeah. And when I read that, I was like, that's like you said, it's a thing that will make you actually think, because you have to actually think about the people in your circle. Mm-hmm. And you have to be really, really honest with yourself about who is really there to build and raise you up, versus who's just sort of there, like, I'm saying that I'm doing this, but in the back of my mind, I really hope you don't succeed. I hope that because there are those people that's like, well, as long as we're like miserable and complaining about something together, like, it's all good.
Yeah, no. I mean, we'll get to the last fifth one, which is integrally connected to point 2, but we got to do this together, or else we're gonna continue to be crabs in a pot.
Yes. And then the third one is never see your space. Neutralize your kryptonite. Stop damaging patterns of self-sabotage. Mm-hmm. I was like, amen.
Yes. Well, we get trained to do this. So it's not like I blame us for doing it, but we do fall victim to it. And, whether it's a toxic relationship, and I've been in them, or whether it's you're having imposter syndrome, there are just so many different things that we have been trained to sabotage ourselves. Yeah. And, once you can identify the patterns, what do I do that self-sabotages me? Mm-hmm. It's so much easier, because I think most of the time the stuff that we really struggle with is the stuff we can't see. Right. Once we can see it, we can say, oh, I know what that is. I'm going to not do that as much. I'm going to figure out how not to do that. But if you can't see it, you can't fix it.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And it's interesting how it sort of creeps in, like, you'll be doing something and then it's like, oh no, you can't. I mean, you can't do such and such and such. Why would you want to do that? And I even I give this example a lot. And when I give this example to people, I didn't really think about that I was self-sabotaging myself. But when I started this podcast, I was like sitting at my table and I was just sort of thinking about, how do I get the message out? I launched this in March last year, right when COVID happened. So it was like, no in-person events, none of that stuff. So I was like, how can I still tell these stories? And I heard start a podcast. And I was like, first thing I said was, I looked back, I was like, who, me? Nobody wants to hear what I have to say. And not even really thinking about it then. Today, I am 100% like, oh, wow, look at that self-sabotage come in and tell you that you couldn't do something. But I think we don't think about it that way most times, like you said. Yeah. But when you're able to identify and put your finger on it, it's like, wow, I'm never going to do that again.
Yeah. And I think a lot of it is that we don't listen to our gut. We don't say, oh, I'm actually, someone says, can you do a thing? And first of you go, and then you go, no, not me. And then that little, and that's when your gut goes, no, be afraid. And it's like, it's okay, I can be afraid, but I'm still going to do the thing.
Yeah,
Still doing it.
I'm fearful, but I got it. I'm all over this.
That's right. Yes.
So neutralize that kryptonite. And I love that it's kryptonite because I love your reference to Superman.
I'm such a nerd. I'm such a nerd. Like when the first iteration of the book had a lot more superhero references. Like I had Storm in there, and I had all these things. And my publisher was like, my editor was like, maybe we can take out a couple of the superhero references. Fine.
You're like, okay,
fine. Perhaps you're right. Maybe it was just for fun for me.
If we must.
Exactly.
So the next one is claim safety in any space. Mm-hmm. Shut it down. Mm-hmm. For aggressors and protect yourself. So I want to, can you speak to that? Because I think that is something that's so necessary for our growth as women.
Well, what I really realized as I was doing all of this research and watching women and watching myself is that in life, women and men of color walk into every room and we put ourselves on a safety scale. Mm-hmm. One side is absolute emotional safety and the other side is complete physical danger. And most of us, now men of color, women of color experience this more, but we don't spend a lot of time in complete physical danger. But we spend a lot of time navigating this part right here, the middle part, and trying to move more towards emotional safety. And so part of what I realized was the people who were able to stay really safe would go in a room, they'd put themselves on the scale. They'd understand why they were there on this scale. Like, oh, that person's over there. That person's dangerous. He is an emotionally unsafe person. I'm a little less safe than usual. And then they would use techniques to try to mitigate and neutralize that person. And it's different for everyone. So I went through all the different things that happen to us and how do we try to go into those situations armed with the tactics to stop people when they're trying to make us small or, worse. And some of the things, of course, I didn't get into because this is not a book about self-defense, but things like microaggressions, mansplaining, interruptions, all of these things, they are things we can handle, but we really need to be prepared for what we are going to have to handle.
Definitely so. The mansplaining, I loved. And
did you see the cartoons?
And then you just mentioned, and then like the interruptions and things of that nature. And it's so, interesting because again, I have this one thing that I'm in a lot, where I, see men interrupting, or just even interrupting each other, and that one person who's constantly like, oh my God, oh, I'm sorry. I was just trying to throw that out there because I didn't want us to forget about it. And then, and it's like, but why are you doing that? So you sort of like yesterday I was thinking about it. I was outside and I was thinking about it. I was like, you know what? I just really actually feel sad for some people who are like that. It's because, is this all you have? Is this one thing that you feel you have to dominate everyone else, talk over people, not give them any space to freely express themselves? And, and that's a sad existence is how I came away from it.
I agree. I mean, if you have to make another human being feel small, so you don't feel small.
Yes.
I have never in my life ever seen a happy person who went around decimating other people.
Exactly. Right.
It just doesn't happen. Happy people don't do that. So if someone's going around and decimating another human being, that is pretty indicative of where they are at in their own heads.
Exactly.
Nothing to do with us. Nothing to do with us.
And I think it's really great to get to a place of being able to recognize that, but then also use empathy, because I was like, damn it, empathy. And then, being able to feel something, because I was like, there's something missing. There's something there that's not actually fulfilled for you, that you feel like you need to be like this. So my heart, I shed a little, I was like, oh.
So, sorry. It's, I mean, because you know what? If you're doing that to people all the time, they don't feel safe around you and they're never going to open up to you. And then you're missing a whole other human being who could have been in your orbit, who you don't get to have in your orbit.
Exactly. And all right. And so my last one, this is the last one I think I love the most because it is just, it's definitely how I feel. Face united, commit to intersectionality, creating a better world for us all. Like that is just so magical to me.
Well, you know, I think that a lot of the feminist movement has been a white feminist movement. And it's really truly been a white supremacist feminist movement because it's often been at the expense of our brown and black sisters. You know, so we are, you know, we're like, yeah, let's claim some space and we want all the pie, you know, and let's just claim it for ourselves. And the problem with, you know, and I will say that I went on my own journey on race and I thought I really understood race. And I realized that I didn't. And I look back on that time and I was really like, yeah, racial justice. And I look back on that time and think, oh God, I can't even, you know, I see other people doing what I did then and I get really triggered and I realize, oh no, that's just me getting mad at my former self. Okay, cool. Like, you know, like don't do that. But, and I don't believe in, as I say, you've read the book, I don't believe in being woke. I think it's ridiculous. I think you can be woking as a white person, but you can never be like, today I woke up and I understand race. It's awesome. You know, you have to be, you're just woking, you're learning all the time. But for me, the relationships that I've forged since opening myself up to the idea that I harbor internalized racism and that I am open to learning and that I'm going to hear from my girlfriends, the depth of those relationships are so beautiful because they trust me now. You know, I had a woman the other day say, well, I'm not racist because none of my black friends ever say I do anything wrong. And I said to her, if they say you never did anything wrong, they're lying to you because you're not safe. You know, because let me tell you, I used to never hear I did anything wrong. And now I hear it every 5 minutes. So now I'm now, so like, you know, so to me, you know, we cannot rise up unless we rise together. And we're 50% of the population. Can you imagine if we united men aren't united? We could just kill stuff. You know, we just need to all be there for each other. It's just, to me, it's just so important. So important. So that was, that is actually for me, that's what made the book a little bit harder to sell because people are very used to this construct of white feminism and never really, and that is what womanhood is, which is just bonkers, right? And so I had to explain to people when I would try to sell the book to publishers, I'd have to say, they say, well, why are you talking about race in a book about women? And I'm like, because there are Black women. Yeah. That is why. And it was just so amazing how hard it was for people to conceive of that. So anyway, I really appreciate that that meant something to you because I fought for that section. And thankfully I have an editor, Anya, who was totally down with it and decided to take a risk on the book.
I love that. And I love your transparency and honesty and the willingness to learn and really truly embrace and learn because you're right. I mean, there's so much with everything obviously that has been going on in our world. You know, there have been probably in June of last year, probably got like 10 calls from, you know, my white friends. Just want to check on you. Blah, blah, blah. And it was all sort of like these same responses, you know, these sort of canned responses. I'm like, it's okay. You can just call me. And we just have a conversation because we've always talked that way. You know, I've always been very honest about like the things that as a Black woman that I've experienced as, you know, as a Black woman married to a Black man, you know, I've always been very open about those things. And I was like, you don't have to like change now. All I need for you to do is to continue to educate yourself. I don't need you don't have to come and like, you know, you don't have to come over here and you have to do anything, but just open your mind and actually like really learn and listen and have empathy. Be able to put yourself into someone else's shoes and understand their journeys. Like that is all that I ask you to do.
Yeah. I also think it goes beyond that because I think there are things that you experience that I will never understand.
Right.
Because I won't live them. And my job is not to understand them because I can't. My job is to believe you. Yes. And that's it. Just to believe you. Yeah. And one of the most formative moments for me happened years and years ago. I was talking to a girlfriend and I was just sort of on this journey. And she said something about that I had said something that wasn't cool. I honestly don't remember what it was. I probably blocked it out because it was embarrassing. But and I said, no. And I started doing that thing where you explain. No, you don't understand. It's not that. It's no, you don't understand what I meant. And she put her hand out and she said, Eliza, I need to stop you because you're being really white right now. and then I got worse. I was like, no. And she goes, and now you're being even whiter. She goes, and then she kind of paused and I'm like, and she said, Eliza, very lovingly. She said, Eliza, when a Black woman is telling you about her experience, your only job is to shut up and listen.
Yes. Yep.
And it was just that moment where, okay, I don't have to be perfect. I can goof this up. I have to try my best all the time, but understand I'm going to mess it up and be open to hearing when I did and learning. And it makes you learn in every way when you do that, I think.
Yes, I like that. So what impact do you hope your book will have on the women who read it?
Well, I think it's twofold. People always ask me at the end of every talk, what do you want women to come away with? And I always say one is this, we have the right to claim space. And I think that we are taught in every possible way, particularly women of color, but all women, that we do not have the right to claim space. And once you truly believe that you have the right to claim space, the rest is gravy. Mm-hmm. Because all you have to do at that point is just learn the skills. But so much of the time that belief is gone. So that's the first thing. And the second thing is claiming space isn't enough. You can't just claim space for yourself. Mm-hmm. If you are selfishly claiming space, you are not claiming space. You have to claim space for yourself. And once you feel like you're in your power, you raise up your sisters. Yes. And if that happens, I think the world will be very different.
Love it. So, Eliza, what is next for you? I know you probably have a lot going on this year. Is there I know you have a lot. I know you're busy. You have a lot going on, and that's exciting. Yeah. But what's in store for you this year?
Okay, so I'd like to say something glamorous, like I'm going on a yacht and I'm going to eat peeled grapes with lots of dudes like fanning me with feathers and, loincloths, but that's not happening. I am literally just promoting the book, which I like doing when I get to have conversations like this, because they're real and they're awesome and they're authentic and I love it. So I'm doing that. May 11th, the book drops, but I'm hoping people buy it before, because if you buy a book early in pre-sale, it tells bookstores, this is a book worth carrying. Mm-hmm. And since I'm a first-time author, that's the only way the books are going to get on the shelf. So I'm hoping that that people buy the book early, and I'm working on that. And then on May 17th, which is the last week of the day of my launch, so it's May 11th is the first day, and then I have a week until May 17th. I plan to sleep. And then hopefully we will be through this horrible dark plague, and I will get to go and hug my friends, because really at this point, I think we all realize that we don't really need to have loincloths and feathers. We just need to have our friends and be able to hug them. So that's what I'm really hoping to do. I miss my friends so much.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm right there with you. I told somebody the other day, I was like, I just want to be able to see my family for the holidays, just see them, even if it's just getting to the holidays and being able to see them. I just want to be able to do that this year. So can you please let my audience know where they can connect to you online and where can they buy your book? Most importantly.
I always feel funny. I feel like a telemarketer when I do this. I'm like, you can buy my book on Amazon, but you can buy my book on Amazon.
You can.
Yes, you can. But yeah, it's available on Amazon right now for pre-sale. And it is available, I think, where all books are sold online, except for bookshops, but the big publishing houses. But I think Amazon's the best way to go. And then you can connect with me on LinkedIn. That's one way. You can connect with me. So I have a professional page on Facebook and a personal page. My professional page is an actual graveyard. I'm trying to make it better. But if you really do want to connect with me, I love hearing from people. Feel free to reach out to me on my personal Facebook page and say that you heard from this podcast. So I know why you're not just some random guy who's like, I'm a single widow contacting you, who's a millionaire, which of course we get when we have our status as single. So just tell me, I heard you on Glow Up Girl. And if you have any questions, I really love connecting with people who have questions about the book. It's kind of why I do this. I really do love it. So
awesome.
You can do LinkedIn, Instagram, or Facebook, and I welcome it.
Awesome. And we'll get all those links. We'll put them in the show notes.
Yeah. And I forgot. See, this is why I'm terrible at this promotion thing. I'm supposed to also tell you guys to go to ElizaVanCort.com, because if you subscribe to my website, I actually send out cool stuff every other week. I don't bombard you. So please do that as well. I am really not good at the selling. I love talking about the work, selling stuff, not so much. So yeah, please subscribe to my website at ElizaVanCort.com.
It is all good. We'll put all that in the show notes so people don't forget, and help you promote it so that people all can find you. So Eliza, thank you so much. This was so great. This was a great conversation. You are always welcome to come back and share this space with me and tell more stories.
Thank you so much, Kyra. I loved talking to you, and I hope we can do it again. It was really an honor and a pleasure.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, stay tuned, guys. I'll be right back.